Most people believe they can spot a liar. They think lies announce themselves, with nervous fidgeting, wandering eyes, awkward pauses. But the most dangerous liars don't look nervous at all. They look comfortable. They look reasonable. Sometimes they look sincere. That's because lying isn't a moral failure first. It's a mental process, and every mental process leaves a trail. The human brain isn't designed to hold two realities at once. What happened and what you're pretending happened. That tension creates pressure, and pressure always leaks. Not in obvious ways, but in patterns, tiny inconsistencies, emotional mismatches, subtle shifts in language and behavior that most people miss because they're listening to the story instead of watching the mind. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The people who lie the most often aren't strangers. They're coworkers, friends, partners, sometimes even family. And the reason they get away with it isn't because they're smarter. It's because you've been trained to doubt your instincts and prioritize politeness over perception. In this video, we're not talking about stereotypes or body language myths. We're breaking down 20 psychological signs that all liars display, whether they're manipulative, charming, passive, or calm on the surface. These are signs rooted in cognitive load, emotional leakage, and self-protection behaviors, patterns the brain cannot fully control. Once you see them, you won't just hear lies anymore. You'll feel the strain behind them, and from that point on, you'll never listen the same way again. 1. They give too much detail. One of the most reliable signs someone is lying is also one of the most misunderstood. When people imagine a lie, they expect vagueness, short answers, dodging. But in reality, liars often do the opposite. They give you too much, too many details, too much context, too much explanation for a question that didn't require any of it. And this isn't accidental, it's psychological. When someone is telling the truth, they're retrieving information. When someone is lying, they're building something, and anything that's built, not remembered, needs reinforcement. That's where excess detail comes in. Why liars over-explain the human brain knows, on some level, when it's fabricating reality. And because the liar doesn't trust the story fully, they don't trust you to accept it either. So they try to make the lie feel rich, logical, real. They add exact times, unnecessary names, side characters, irrelevant sequences. Not because you asked, but because they're trying to convince themselves as much as you. Truth doesn't need padding. Lies feel naked without it. The cognitive load behind the detail. Here's what's happening internally. A truthful person is answering one question: what happened? A liar is answering several at once. What's believable? What did I say last time? What details make me look innocent? What might you check later? That mental juggling creates anxiety. And anxiety pushes people to over-control the narrative. More detail feels safer, like adding locks to a door that was never under threat. The personal experience. This is where it clicked for me. I didn't learn this from a book first. I learned it from a moment that stuck with me, because it felt off long before it made sense. Years ago, I asked someone close to me a very simple question. Nothing confrontational, nothing emotional, just, why didn't you reply yesterday? That was it. A normal, honest answer would have been something like, sorry, I was busy, or I forgot. Instead, I got a 5-minute explanation. They told me what time they woke up, who they spoke to that morning, why their phone battery was low, what app they were using, how stressed they were, where they were sitting, what they planned to do next. It felt like a documentary for a yes or no question. And while they were talking, I remember thinking something very specific. Why am I being given all this? Nothing they said was outrageous. Nothing was obviously false, but the density of it was wrong. It felt rehearsed, heavy, almost defensive, without being defensive. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself I was overthinking. Weeks later, the truth came out. And when it did, what stood out wasn't the lie itself. It was how hard they worked to make it feel real. That was the moment I understood something important. Honest people don't build walls of detail. They walk you straight to the point. The difference between natural detail and defensive detail. Now, to be clear, detail alone doesn't mean someone is lying. Some people are expressive. Some people ramble. Some people think out loud. The difference is intent. Truthful detail feels casual, unstructured, slightly imperfect. Lying detail feels strategic, polished. Just a little too complete. Liars tend to anticipate objections you haven't made, questions you didn't ask, explain motivations no one challenged. It's not storytelling, it's preemptive defense.
That's why this works on most people.
Most people equate detail with honesty. We've been conditioned to believe, if they remember this much, it must be real. Liars know this, consciously or not. So they exploit it. They overwhelm you with information, so you stop questioning. Lose track of the original issue. Feel rude, interrupting. Information overload creates compliance. You stop analyzing and start listening passively. That's the trap. A simple test that exposes this sign. Here's how you quietly test it, without accusing anyone. When someone gives you an overly detailed answer, do this. Pause. Then ask a small neutral follow-up. Something like, what time was that again? Who else was there? Which day did that happen? If the story is real, the answer comes easily, even if imperfect. If it's fabricated, you'll notice hesitation, slight correction, rephrasing, or even irritation. Because now they have to rebuild the structure, not just recite it. Truth adapts. Lies resist. Why this sign is so universal. Every liar, no matter how skilled, faces the same problem. They are trying to replace reality with something else. And replacement requires support beams. That's why this sign appears across small lies, big lies, white lies, chronic deception. The scale changes, the mechanism doesn't. Even professional liars, sales manipulators, habitual deceivers, charming narcissists, rely on excessive detail when they feel exposed. Because detail feels like control. The deeper insight, at its core, over-explaining is about fear. Fear of being doubted. Fear of being uncovered. Fear of losing the image they're protecting. And the irony is this: the more someone tries to make a lie feel solid, the heavier it becomes. And weight always leaves marks. Key line to remember. Here's the sentence that sums it all up. Truth is efficient. Lies are elaborate. If someone consistently gives you far more than you asked for, especially around sensitive topics, don't rush to accuse. Just notice. Because liars don't trip over silence. They trip over their own excess. 2. Their story feels rehearsed. There's a specific feeling you get when someone is lying, and it has nothing to do with what they're saying. It's the smoothness. The story comes out too clean, too organized, too confident. No pauses, no searching for words, no natural uncertainty. It sounds like a performance, and that's because it is. Why rehearsal is a red flag. Real memories are not scripts. They don't unfold in perfect order. They don't hit every beat cleanly. They don't arrive fully formed. When people tell the truth, they're accessing information, not delivering it. They hesitate. They backtrack. They correct themselves. They say things like, "Wait, no, actually, that was later. I'm not sure about the exact time. I might be mixing that up." These aren't weaknesses. They're signs of authenticity, because memory retrieval is imperfect by nature. Lying isn't. Lying is construction, and construction benefits from rehearsal. What rehearsal really means, psychologically, when someone rehearses a lie, they're doing something very specific. They're trying to remove uncertainty. Uncertainty is dangerous because it creates openings for questions. So the liar polishes transitions, eliminates gaps, decides in advance what they'll say if challenged. They turn an unstable story into a controlled narrative. That's why rehearsed lies feel smooth, but hollow, like a speech memorized word for word, but never truly understood. The brain difference, recall versus recital. Here's the critical distinction most people miss. Truth is recalled. Lies are recited. Recall involves accessing sensory fragments, emotional context, incomplete data. Recital involves linear delivery, preselected phrasing, emotional neutrality. When someone is recalling, their brain jumps around. When someone is reciting, their brain follows a path. That path is the rehearsal. How rehearsal reveals itself. Rehearsed stories share several subtle characteristics. 1. The story starts too fast. There's no "let me think." They launch immediately, as if the story was waiting at the door. That's because it was. 2. The middle is too clean. No confusion, no overlapping events, no memory noise. Every detail sits exactly where it should. Real life doesn't behave like that. 3. The ending lands perfectly. The story wraps up neatly, often with a moral justification or emotional resolution. Truth doesn't aim for closure. Lies do. Why this works on most people. We associate confidence with honesty. So when someone speaks clearly, fluidly, and without hesitation, we relax. We assume they know what they're talking about. But confidence doesn't equal truth. It equals preparation, and liars prepare far more than honest people, because they have to. The subtle, uncanny feeling rehearsed lies often trigger something quiet but persistent, a sense that you're being talked at, not talked to. The person doesn't adapt much to your reactions. They don't pause when you look confused. They don't slow down when something doesn't land. They're following a track. You could nod. You could frown. You could interrupt. The story keeps going. That's because it's not interactive. It's delivered. Why honest people sound less convincing. This is where things get uncomfortable. Honest people often sound less believable than liars. They pause, struggle to remember, use vague language, contradict themselves slightly. And because we've been trained to equate clarity with truth, we sometimes distrust the honest person and trust the liar. That's the paradox. Truth is messy, lies are tidy, rehearsal creates emotional flatness. Another key sign, the emotions feel muted or misplaced. The person may describe something stressful calmly, talk about something meaningful without warmth, express outrage without depth. Why? Because rehearsed stories are emotionally simulated, not felt. The emotion is added for effect, not generated naturally. It's acted, and acting requires control. Why liars rehearse more than you think? Many people assume liars only rehearse big lies. That's wrong. People rehearse explanations, excuses, image-saving stories, justifications, sometimes unconsciously. Anytime someone anticipates judgment, they start scripting. They run the conversation in their head. If they ask this, I'll say that. If they doubt me, I'll explain this part. If they push back, I'll emphasize this detail. By the time they speak to you, the conversation has already happened, just not with you. The danger of the perfect story, a flawless story, feels safe. But perfection is unnatural. When a story has no uncertainty, no emotional variance, no spontaneous correction, it's not memory, it's narrative control. And control is the liar's primary objective. A quiet way to expose a rehearsed story. You don't need to accuse. You don't need to interrogate. Just do this. Interrupt the flow. Ask an unexpected, minor question. Something unimportant. For example, what was the weather like that day? Who was the first person you spoke to after? What happened right before that? Truth adjusts, rehearsed lies stall. You'll notice a pause that wasn't there before, a slight restart, a change in tone or irritation, because now the script has been disrupted, and without the script, the liar has to improvise. That's where cracks appear. Why skilled liars still can't avoid this. Even highly intelligent, socially skilled liars fall into rehearsal, because the human brain hates uncertainty, and lies are nothing but uncertainty, held together by planning. No matter how good someone is, they still need a beginning, a middle and end. They still need internal consistency, and that need creates structure. Structure creates rigidity. Rigidity exposes rehearsal, the deeper psychological truth. At its core, a rehearsed story reveals something deeper than deception. It reveals fear of exposure, fear of being questioned, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing control over perception. So the liar rehearses, not to deceive you, but to protect themselves. That protection comes at a cost. Authenticity disappears, and what's left is something that sounds right, but doesn't feel right. Key line to remember, here's the sentence that matters. Truth wanders, lies stay on script. If someone's story feels more like a presentation than a memory, more like a speech than a recollection, pay attention, because reality doesn't rehearse. 3. They get defensive too quickly. One of the clearest signs someone is lying has nothing to do with words. It's the speed of the reaction. You ask a simple, neutral question, no accusation, no hostility, and suddenly they're tense. Their voice sharpens, their posture stiffens, their tone shifts from conversational to combative. You haven't accused them of anything, but they're already defending themselves. That speed matters, because defensiveness isn't caused by your question. It's caused by internal threat. Why honest people don't react like this? When someone is telling the truth, questions are not dangerous. They might be curious. They might be surprised. They might even laugh it off. But they don't feel threatened. Why? Because truth doesn't require protection. An honest person thinks, I'll just explain. A liar thinks, I need to shut this down. That difference creates urgency, and urgency creates defensiveness. Defensiveness is a stress response. Psychologically, defensiveness is a form of fight or flight. The brain senses danger, not physical danger, but identity danger. A lie isn't just false information, it's something being guarded. So when a question comes too close to it, the nervous system reacts before logic can catch up. That's why the defensiveness feels automatic. It's not strategic at first, it's reflexive. What too quickly actually looks like this kind of defensiveness shows up before there's any real pressure. You might hear, why are you questioning me? Don't you trust me? I can't believe you'd even ask that. This is ridiculous. Notice what's missing. An answer. They skip explanation and jump straight to emotional resistance. That's because the goal isn't clarity. The goal is containment. Why liars use emotion as a shield: defensiveness serves a very specific purpose. It does three things at once. It shifts the focus. Now the conversation is about your tone, not their behavior. It discourages follow-up questions. You hesitate to ask more because you don't want conflict. It reframes the liar as the victim. Suddenly, they are the one being wronged. This isn't random. It's a survival move. The guilt trap, one of the most effective defensive tactics, is guilt. The liar implies, if you were a good person, you wouldn't question me. This makes you feel paranoid, insecure, unfair, so you back off. Not because the answer made sense, but because the emotional cost of continuing feels too high. That's not resolution, that's manipulation. The timing is the tell everyone gets defensive sometimes. That's not the point. The point is timing. Defensive reactions that come before accusation, before evidence, before pressure, are disproportionate. And disproportionate reactions usually signal hidden stakes. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to protect. How defensiveness replaces logic. Another key sign: once defensiveness appears, reasoning disappears. Instead of facts, you get tone policing, character attacks, emotional exaggeration. You're always suspicious. You're overthinking. You're making a big deal out of nothing. These statements don't address the issue. They shut it down. That's intentional. Why this works so well on good people? This tactic works best on people who are empathetic, self-reflective, conflict avoidant. You start asking yourself, maybe I am being unfair. Maybe I shouldn't push this. Liars rely on this. They know that decent people question themselves, so they turn that against you. The emotional inconsistency. Another subtle sign is emotional mismatch. The level of anger doesn't match the situation. A small question triggers a big reaction. That imbalance is telling. It suggests the emotion isn't about you. It's about what the question threatens to uncover. Why defensiveness often escalates. Once a liar goes defensive, escalation is common. Why? Because defensiveness locks them into a position. Backing down would mean losing control, admitting vulnerability, risking exposure. So instead they double down. More emotion, more indignation, more pressure on you to stop. That's why these conversations feel exhausting. You're not discussing facts, you're navigating emotional landmines. A calm way to expose this pattern: you don't need to argue. Just do this. Stay calm, lower your voice, and repeat the question, slowly and neutrally. If the defensiveness increases instead of settling, that's information. Truth welcomes calm. Lies escalate under it. The deeper psychological truth. At the core, quick defensiveness reveals one thing: fear of losing control over perception. The liar isn't just protecting a false story. They're protecting their image, their moral standing, their power in the relationship. And when that's threatened, the mask slips. Key line to remember. Here's the sentence to carry with you. Truth explains, lies react. If someone meets curiosity with combat, if a simple question triggers an emotional wall, pay attention, because defensiveness isn't proof of innocence. It's often proof of fragility. 4. Their emotions don't match the story. One of the most revealing signs someone is lying isn't found in what they say. It's found in how their emotions fail to line up with their words. They tell you something serious, but their tone is casual. They describe something painful, but their face is flat. They recount something frightening, but there's no tension in their body. The story says one thing, the emotions say another, and that gap is where the truth leaks out. Why emotional mismatch is so powerful. Human beings don't just remember events. We remember how we felt, what our body did, what emotions were activated. Real memories are encoded emotionally, not just factually. That means when someone recalls a genuine experience, the emotion doesn't have to be forced. It arrives on its own. When someone is lying, that emotional system isn't activated naturally because the experience never happened. So the liar has two options: fake the emotion or suppress it entirely. Both create mismatch. The brain can fake words, not feelings. Language is easy to manipulate. Emotion is not. That's because emotions originate in deeper, older parts of the brain, areas that respond automatically, not strategically. A liar may consciously think, I should sound upset here, but the nervous system doesn't follow scripts. So what you often see is sad words with no sadness, anger described calmly, happiness narrated without warmth. It feels hollow, like someone reading about a storm instead of standing in one. Common emotional mismatches to watch for. Here are some of the most frequent combinations: serious event plus casual tone, supposed outrage plus no physiological intensity, claimed fear plus relaxed posture, alleged guilt plus no discomfort. The emotion doesn't land, it floats above the story instead of coming from it. Why this happens in liars? Because emotion is not recalled, it's simulated, and simulation requires control. That control creates delay, stiffness, or exaggeration. The liar is thinking, how should I feel here? What emotion makes this believable? Am I showing enough? Meanwhile, an honest person isn't thinking about emotion at all. They're inside it. Flat effect. When emotion is missing entirely, one especially telling sign is emotional flatness. The person describes a betrayal, a loss, a conflict, but their emotional range barely moves. No tightening in the voice, no micro changes in expression, no emotional spikes. This often happens when the liar chooses suppression over acting. They think, if I stay calm, I'll look credible. But calm doesn't equal truthful. Sometimes it equals disconnected. Overacting, the other side of the coin. Some liars go the opposite direction. They exaggerate emotion. Too much outrage, too much sadness, too much shock. But the emotion feels theatrical, not organic. It appears suddenly, peaks quickly, and disappears just as fast. Real emotion rises and falls gradually. Acted emotion turns on, like a switch. The timing is always slightly off. Even skilled liars struggle with emotional timing. You might notice a pause before emotion appears. Emotion that shows up after the key moment. Facial expressions that lag behind the words. This happens because the liar is adding emotion as an accessory, not experiencing it as a response. The delay is subtle, but once you notice it, it's unmistakable. Why emotional mismatch feels unsettling. Most people can't explain why emotional mismatch bothers them. They just say, something felt off. That's because your brain is constantly syncing. Words, tone, facial expression, body language. When these signals don't align, your brain flags it as inconsistency, even if you can't consciously identify why. That's intuition, and intuition is pattern recognition, not paranoia. Why honest people can look less emotional than liars. Here's an important nuance. Some honest people are emotionally reserved. Some underreact. Some struggle to express feelings. That alone is not deception. The key difference is coherence. In honest people, the emotional style is consistent. The flatness matches their personality. The tone stays stable across situations. In liars, the emotional expression changes strategically. It appears only when it's useful. It disappears when scrutiny increases. Consistency reveals truth. Performance reveals intention. Emotion avoidance as self-protection. Liars often avoid emotion because emotion creates unpredictability, leads to spontaneous reactions, increases the risk of contradiction, so they stay neutral. They narrate instead of relive. They talk about the event instead of from it. This creates emotional distance, and distance is safety for them. Why emotional leakage still happens. Even when liars suppress emotion, leakage occurs. It might show up as sudden irritation, inappropriate humor, smiling at the wrong moment, micro-expressions that contradict the story. These are not planned, they're involuntary, and they often appear at the exact moment the lie is under pressure. A quiet way to test emotional authenticity. You don't need to accuse or confront. Just gently ask, how did that make you feel? What was the hardest part of that for you? If the story is real, emotion emerges naturally, even if muted. If it's fabricated, you'll notice generic answers, intellectualized responses, emotion that sounds copied, not lived. Truth may be uncomfortable, but it's accessible. Lies often dodge emotion entirely. Why this sign is universal. Every liar faces the same problem. You can invent facts, but you can't invent lived emotion. That's why emotional mismatch appears in small lies, big lies, casual deception, chronic manipulation. The scale changes, the flaw doesn't. The deeper psychological insight. At its core, emotional mismatch reveals disconnection from reality. The liar isn't anchored to experience, they're anchored to outcome. They care less about what happened, and more about how they're perceived. That shift always distorts emotion. Key line to remember: this is the sentence that matters. Real experiences carry emotional weight. Fabricated ones carry emotional effort. If someone's emotions feel misplaced, delayed, exaggerated, or missing, and this happens consistently, pay attention. Because emotion doesn't lie, people do. 5. They avoid direct denials. One of the clearest signs someone is lying is not what they say, it's what they refuse to say. You ask a direct question, something that only requires a simple answer, yes or no. And instead of giving you either, they begin to circle the truth. They talk, they explain, they react. But they never deny the thing itself, that avoidance is not accidental. Why direct denials are dangerous for liars. A direct denial is a commitment. Once someone says, "No, I did not do that," they've locked themselves into a position. If evidence appears later, that denial becomes a trap. Liars understand this, often intuitively, so instead of denying, they reframe, redirect, emotionalize, moralize anything except committing to a clear no, what avoidance sounds like. Instead of denying, liars say things like, "Why would I even do that? That doesn't sound like me. You know I'm not that kind of person. I can't believe you'd think that." Notice the pattern. These statements defend character, not behavior. They're saying, "I'm a good person," not "that didn't happen." That distinction matters. Why this works so well. Most people hear these responses and think, well, that sounds convincing. Because we confuse emotional reassurance with factual clarity. But reassurance is not an answer. It's a distraction, and distractions are useful when the truth is dangerous. The psychology behind the evasion: when someone lies, they're managing risk. A direct denial creates a clear contradiction later, a concrete statement to be challenged. A memory anchor you can return to. Avoidance keeps things flexible. If the truth comes out, they can say, "That's not what I meant. You misunderstood me. I never actually said no. That's not an accident. That's design." Moral language as a shield. Another common tactic is moral outrage. Instead of denying the act, the liar reacts to the implication. They say, "I would never betray you. That's insulting. I can't believe you'd accuse me." Morality becomes the focus. Your question becomes the problem, not their behavior. This flips the emotional burden onto you. Why honest people don't do this? When someone is honest, denial is easy. They don't need to soften it. They don't need to decorate it. They don't need to protect themselves from future exposure. They just say, "No, I didn't." It may come with confusion, or curiosity, or even humor, but it comes. Liars delay or avoid, because denial is too final. The linguistic escape hatch. Pay attention to how liars phrase things. They often use questions instead of statements, generalizations instead of specifics, character claims instead of factual claims. For example, "Do you really think I'd risk everything over that?" That sounds like a denial, but it isn't. It's speculation, and speculation can't be proven false. Why this triggers self-doubt in you. Avoiding denial puts you in a strange position. You start thinking, "Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm reading too much into this." Because the person never directly contradicts you, they just make you feel wrong for asking. That's a psychological maneuver. It shifts uncertainty onto you. When liars finally deny, it's often conditional. If a liar does deny, it often comes with escape clauses. "Not that I remember," "not intentionally," "not in the way you're implying." These qualifiers weaken the denial. They leave room to pivot later. Truth doesn't need loopholes. A quiet test for this sign. Here's a simple way to clarify without accusing. Restate the question calmly and precisely. So just to be clear, are you saying no? Watch the response. Honest people answer. Liars often rephrase again. Get irritated, accuse you of pushing, change the subject. Because now the escape routes are closing. Why skilled liars use this constantly? This tactic is common among chronic manipulators, emotionally evasive people, image-focused personalities. They live in ambiguity. Ambiguity protects them, and avoiding denial is one of the cleanest ways to maintain it. The deeper psychological insight. Avoiding direct denial reveals one core fear, the fear of being pinned to reality. Liars don't want to be anchored to what actually happened. They want flexibility. They want options. They want room to move if the ground shifts. And avoiding a simple no gives them exactly that. Key line to remember: this is the sentence to hold on to. Truth doesn't dodge yes or no questions. Lies do. If someone consistently avoids direct denial, especially when the question is clear, pay attention, because silence, evasion, and moral outrage often mean the same thing. The truth is too risky to say out loud. 6. They use distance language. One of the quietest signs someone is lying lives inside their choice of words. Not what they say happened, but how far they place themselves from it. Instead of speaking directly, They create distance, distance from responsibility, distance from agency, distance from the truth. And most people never notice it because it sounds polite, neutral, even mature. But psychologically, it's anything but. What distance language actually is? Distance language is when someone avoids placing themselves clearly inside an action. Instead of, I did this, I said that, I made that choice, they say, things happened, mistakes were made. It just sort of occurred. That situation unfolded. The event exists, but they disappear from it. That's not coincidence. That's self-protection. Why liars create distance? When someone lies, they experience internal conflict. On one level, they know what happened. On another, they're trying to escape accountability. Distance language resolves that tension. It allows them to talk around the truth without fully touching it. Psychologically, this reduces guilt and anxiety, fear of exposure, because the more abstract the language, the less real the action feels, even to them. The brain's strategy, detachment. Distance language is a form of detachment. The liar subtly shifts from first-person I to passive or impersonal phrasing. It, that, things. This isn't about grammar, it's about ownership. Ownership increases risk. Distance reduces it. Passive voice is a red flag. One of the most common tools of distance language is the passive voice. Listen for phrases like, mistakes were made, boundaries were crossed, lines were blurred, things got complicated. These statements describe outcomes, but hide actors. Something happened, but no one did it, especially not them. Why honest people speak differently? When someone is telling the truth, even about something uncomfortable, they tend to be more direct. They say, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. I handled that badly. It's not elegant, it's not polished, but it's grounded. Truth anchors people to reality. Lies push them into abstraction. Distance language and emotional safety. Distance doesn't just protect against consequences, it protects against emotion. Using vague language allows liars to avoid guilt, shame, vulnerability. They're not reliving the moment, they're summarizing it from afar. That emotional distance is intentional, because emotion creates unpredictability, and unpredictability threatens control. How distance language sounds in conversation. Here are some common patterns. Instead of, I lied to you, they say, there was some miscommunication. Instead of, I ignored your message, they say, things got busy. Instead of, I crossed a line, they say, boundaries weren't clear. Notice how the harm becomes foggy. No clear actor, no clear action, no clear responsibility. Why this confuses you? Distance language creates ambiguity, and ambiguity forces you to fill in the gaps. You start thinking, maybe it really wasn't intentional, maybe it just happened. This softens your judgment, not because the explanation was clear, but because it was vague. Vagueness feels non-threatening, and that's exactly why liars use it. Distance language and image management. Liars are often more concerned with how they appear than what actually occurred. Distance language helps preserve their moral image, their reputation, their self-concept. They can acknowledge something happened without admitting they caused it. This allows them to look honest without being accountable. Why distance language appears under pressure. You'll notice this language increases when stakes are high, consequences loom, trust is at risk. The more dangerous the truth becomes, the more abstract the language gets. Specifics disappear. Responsibility dissolves. Everything turns into a situation. The subtle shift: you should listen for pay attention to pronouns. When someone moves from I's we call, EY's people, I's people, they're spreading responsibility or removing it entirely. This shift often happens mid-conversation. That's when the lie's closest to the surface. Why even skilled liars can't avoid this distance language isn't always conscious. It's emotional. When someone feels threatened, their language automatically becomes less personal. That's why even intelligent, articulate liars reveal themselves here. Their words drift away from ownership, even as they try to sound reasonable. A calm way to test for distance language. You don't need to accuse, just gently bring the story back to the speaker. Ask, what part did you play in that? What did you decide in that moment? What did you say exactly? Truth moves closer. Lies resist. You may notice hesitation, rephrasing, irritation, or another round of abstraction. Because now the distance is being closed. The deeper psychological truth. At its core, distance language reveals avoidance of accountability. The liar isn't just hiding facts. They're protecting their identity. They want to survive the conversation without being seen too clearly. So they blur the edges, and blur creates safety. Key line to remember this is the sentence to carry with you. Truth uses I's hide behind it. If someone consistently describes harmful events as if they happened on their own, without clear actors or choices, pay attention, because when responsibility disappears from language, it's usually hiding somewhere else. 7. They overuse absolutes. One of the most subtle signs someone is lying shows up in a single category of words, not gestures, not tone, not eye contact. Absolutes. Words like always, never, every time, absolutely, completely, I swear. At first, these words sound confident, but psychologically, they often signal the opposite. Why absolutes are a red flag. Real life is messy. People forget. People slip. People act inconsistently. So when someone describes themselves or a situation in perfect, absolute terms, something doesn't add up. Truth leaves room for imperfection. Lies try to eliminate it. Absolutes create the illusion of certainty. And illusions are useful when reality is shaky. What's happening in the liar's mind? When someone is lying, they're uncomfortable with ambiguity. Ambiguity invites questions. Questions invite exposure, so they shut the door completely. Instead of saying, I don't remember doing that, they say, I would never do something like that. Instead of that didn't happen, they say, that never happens. The goal isn't accuracy. The goal is finality. Absolutes as verbal armor. Absolutes act like armor. They're meant to end the conversation, discourage follow-ups, make doubt feel unreasonable. When someone says never, questioning them feels like accusing them of lying about their entire character. That emotional weight protects the lie. Why honest people avoid absolutes? Honest people are cautious with extreme language. They say things like, as far as I remember, usually I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. Why? Because truth doesn't need to sound strong. It just needs to be accurate. Honest people know that overconfidence can backfire. Liars don't want room for backfire. They want closure, absolutes, and identity defense. Another reason liars use absolutes is identity protection. They're not just denying an action, they're defending who they believe themselves to be. I would never lie to you. I always tell the truth. These statements aren't factual claims. They're identity claims, and identity claims are harder to challenge without feeling cruel. Why absolutes often appear with emotion. You'll often notice absolutes delivered with raised voice, strong emphasis. Hand gestures, moral language. I never do that. I always show up. The emotion is there to reinforce the certainty. But the emotion isn't confidence. It's pressure. The cognitive shortcut behind absolutes. Absolutes simplify thinking. For a liar juggling multiple versions of a story, simplicity is safety. Never requires less mental maintenance than accept that one time, but not like this, and not exactly. So they choose the extreme. It's easier to remember and easier to defend until it isn't. Why absolutes eventually collapse. The problem with absolutes is that reality eventually contradicts them. All it takes is one exception, one piece of evidence, one remembered moment, and the entire statement falls apart. That's why liars often have to revise their absolutes later. Suddenly, never becomes almost never. Always becomes, usually, absolutely not becomes, not intentionally. Those shifts are tells, a quiet way to test absolutes. You don't need to challenge directly, just soften the claim. If someone says, I never did that, you reply calmly, not even once. Truth answers easily. Lies hesitate, because now they have to choose between maintaining the absolute or retreating from it. Both reveal something. Why this sign is especially common in manipulators. People who rely on image, charmers, chronic liars, narcissistic types, use absolutes constantly. They want to appear consistent, reliable, morally clean. Absolutes help create that illusion. But perfection is not human, and pretending to be perfect is often a cover. The emotional effect on you absolutes make you feel unreasonable for doubting. If someone says, I would never betray you, and you continue questioning, you start feeling harsh, suspicious, ungrateful. That emotional pressure silences you. That's the point. The deeper psychological insight. Overusing absolutes reveals fear of nuance. Nuance exposes cracks. Nuance invites examination. So the liar paints in black and white, clear, strong, simple. But reality is gray, and gray is where truth lives. Key line to remember. This is the sentence to hold on to. Truth tolerates uncertainty. Lies demand certainty. If someone relies heavily on always, never, and absolutely, especially when stakes are high, listen closely, because absolutes don't make a statement truer. They often make it fragile. 8. Change the subject quickly. One of the most common signs a person is lying is also one of the easiest to miss. They don't answer the question you asked. Instead, they change the subject quickly, smoothly, almost imperceptibly. You might think it's natural. Maybe they're nervous. Maybe they misunderstood. But when it happens repeatedly, it's a clear pattern, and psychologically, it reveals something very important. Avoidance. Why liars change the subject? Lying is mentally demanding. When someone fabricates reality, they are juggling multiple versions of events, anticipating questions and controlling emotional responses all at once. A direct question is dangerous. It's a potential trap. So instead of risking exposure, they pivot, they deflect, they redirect. This achieves 3 things. It buys them time. Every second you are distracted is a second they have to organize their next line. It shifts focus away from the threat. You forget the original question. It frames the conversation on their terms. They get to decide the narrative, rather than respond truthfully. How subject changing looks in conversation. Here's the subtlety. A liar rarely changes the subject abruptly. Instead, they do it smoothly. So smoothly that you barely notice. Example, you ask, "Where were you last night?" They reply, "I was working on that project we talked about." Speaking of which, did you see the update I sent this morning? Notice what happened. You didn't get a straight answer. The topic shifted without conflict. They controlled the flow of the conversation. Why it feels frustrating. Changing the subject preys on your natural desire for clarity. You expect an answer. Your brain is tuned to detect contradictions. Your curiosity triggers follow-up questions. When the liar diverts, it creates subtle cognitive dissonance. You feel something is off. You can't articulate what. You start questioning yourself instead of the liar. This is exactly why the tactic works. The psychology behind the tactic. Humans are naturally uncomfortable with confrontation and ambiguity. Liars exploit this by redirecting the conversation to less risky territory. They know that confrontation increases scrutiny. Complexity invites cross-checking. Attention increases the chance of being caught. So they train the conversation to flow away from the danger. Even without consciously planning it, their brain does this automatically. The emotional cue that often accompanies it, a subtle indicator, often appears alongside subject changes, micro-tension or haste. You might notice slight posture shift, rapid eye movement, quickened speech, nervous laugh. It's almost imperceptible, but it's their mind signaling. Stay away from the real answer. Why honest people don't do this. Truthful people rarely need to pivot. If you ask a direct question, they answer it, even if the answer is uncomfortable. Even mistakes, misunderstandings, or small transgressions are easier to discuss than inventing a story or hiding one. They may pause, they may clarify, they may explain, but the answer is always grounded in the question you asked. A quiet way to detect this sign. Next time someone dodges a question, pause, repeat the question calmly, observe their reaction. If they double down on distraction or attempt another subject pivot, that's a strong signal. Honest people will return to the original question naturally. Liars will continue to avoid, redirect, or deflect. The deeper insight, changing the subject quickly, isn't random. It's a protective mechanism. It's the liar's way of maintaining control over the narrative while minimizing exposure. And it works because most people are polite. We let the distraction slide. We avoid pressing. We rationalize the evasion. But repeated subject changes create a trail of avoidance. And that trail almost always leads to a lie. Key line to remember: truth answers questions, lies redirect them. 9. They mirror your emotions artificially. One of the most insidious signs someone is lying isn't in what they say. It's in how they feel when they respond. They seem to understand you perfectly. They nod at the right moments. They laugh when you laugh. They look concerned when you do. At first, it feels reassuring, comforting even. But the truth is, it's a performance. Why liars mirror emotion? Humans are naturally wired for empathy. We instinctively mirror others' emotions to build connection. Liars exploit this instinct. By reflecting your feelings, even subtly, they create trust, disarm suspicion, and steer the conversation away from the truth. It's a kind of emotional camouflage. You feel understood. You feel seen. You feel safe. Meanwhile, the liar is calculating. They're not feeling empathy. They're simulating it. Signs the mirroring is artificial. There are several subtle cues that reveal the act. Timing is slightly off. Genuine mirroring happens almost unconsciously. Artificial mirroring is delayed, too fast, too slow, or exaggerated. Emotions feel exaggerated or flat. They smile a little too widely. They nod a little too perfectly. They express concern in a way that feels scripted. It stops when it's inconvenient. When the liar is under pressure, the mirroring often fades. Real empathy persists. Even under stress. Why this works psychologically. Mirroring creates a false sense of intimacy. It tricks your brain into thinking the liar is trustworthy, because emotional alignment equals sign similarity. Similarity equals sign reliability. Reliability equals sign safety. Even if you feel a subtle discomfort, your brain tends to rationalize it. They just really get me. And that rationalization is exactly what the liar is counting on. The difference between natural and artificial mirroring. Natural mirroring, spontaneous, context appropriate, slightly imperfect, reflects genuine emotional connection. Artificial mirroring, overly precise, consistent, to the point of mechanical, often slightly delayed or exaggerated, serves a strategic purpose. One feels human, one feels designed. Why liars use mirroring? So often liars know that credibility is emotional before it's factual. Facts can be challenged. Emotions are harder to contest. If you believe someone feels like you do, their story becomes easier to accept. Mirroring is a way to manipulate trust without saying a word. Subtle signs to watch for. They repeat your phrases or words in conversation unnaturally. They echo your body language in a way that feels too perfect. Their emotional intensity always matches yours, even when it shouldn't. Their reactions feel on cue, rather than arising naturally from the moment. If you notice this pattern repeatedly, it's a strong signal of emotional strategy, not genuine empathy. A quiet way to test mirroring. You don't need confrontation. Shift your emotional tone subtly. Introduce unexpected nuance in your feelings. Observe whether they adjust perfectly or falter. Truthful people respond naturally to changes. They may adapt, but it's fluid. Artificial mirroring often breaks under subtle pressure. The timing slips. The expression overcompensates. The pattern feels off. The deeper psychological insight. At its core, artificial mirroring is about control. The liar is trying to shape your perception. They want you to trust them. They want you to lower suspicion. They want you to accept their narrative. This is a form of emotional manipulation. The more comfortable you feel, the more vulnerable you are to deception. Key line to remember: genuine empathy flows. Artificial mirroring follows. If someone consistently mirrors your feelings in a way that feels mechanical, calculated, or too perfect, pay attention. Because emotions are supposed to be shared, not staged. 10. Something feels off. Consistently. Sometimes, the clearest sign someone is lying isn't in their words, their tone, or even their body language. Sometimes, it's just a feeling, a subtle sense that something isn't right, a faint tension under their calm, a hesitation under their certainty, a flicker of inconsistency you can't fully put your finger on. And when this happens consistently, it's rarely wrong. Why your gut picks up lies. Your brain is a pattern-detecting machine. It constantly scans for facial micro-expressions, vocal cues, timing inconsistencies, emotional mismatches. Even if you can't consciously identify them, your subconscious notices when things don't align. That feeling of unease is your brain signaling a mismatch. The words may match, The gestures may match, the tone may match, but your intuition detects something deeper: internal inconsistency. What off feels like a subtle tension in conversation, a feeling of being manipulated or misled, small cues that seem out of place, slightly delayed reactions to questions, overly polished storytelling. It's like standing on a floor that looks solid, but wobbles ever so slightly when you step. Why honest people rarely trigger. This: honest people may be nervous. Honest people may make mistakes. Honest people may hesitate, but their nervousness matches their behavior. Their hesitations are contextually appropriate. Their emotions feel rooted in experience. When something is truly off, the feeling is consistent across multiple interactions, not just one moment of uncertainty. Consistency is key. One odd cue doesn't make someone a liar. A flustered answer once could be nerves. A minor slip could be forgetfulness. But when you feel that subtle offness every time, it signals a deeper pattern. It's the mind telling you, pay attention, something here doesn't add up. This is the red flag your subconscious waves, even when your conscious mind is unsure. The subtle psychology behind this feeling: your subconscious constantly matches patterns of behavior with expectations. When someone tells the truth, their words, tone, and micro-expressions align naturally. When someone lies, there's almost always a tiny gap, an imperfection, a misalignment. Your brain detects that gap. You feel it before you can articulate it. And over time, repeated detection builds into a consistent sense of wrongness. How liars trigger this feeling: liars often create unease without realizing it. Their timing may be slightly off. Their gestures may overcompensate. Their tone may be subtly inconsistent. Their stories may feel too neat or too polished. Even when these cues are minuscule, your subconscious notices. And that's why this feeling persists. Trusting your intuition. Many people dismiss gut feelings because they can't explain them logically. But intuition is often more accurate than conscious reasoning in detecting deception. If you consistently feel something is off, observe carefully. Look for other confirming cues. Compare behavior to prior patterns. Chances are, your brain is picking up something very real. A practical way to test this feeling: you don't need confrontation. Take a step back and review past interactions. Ask yourself, does the unease happen often? Look for supporting behavioral or verbal cues. The more consistent the feeling, the more likely it's signaling deception. The deeper psychological insight. This sign isn't about evidence. It's about pattern recognition. It's about subtle dissonance between reality and perception. It's about your brain quietly flagging something before your conscious mind catches on. Key line to remember: if it feels off consistently, it probably is. Even if every word seems plausible, every gesture seems natural, and every story seems rehearsed, your intuition knows the truth before you do. Liars can lie, they can mimic, they can distract, but they cannot fake the feeling that something is off. Lies rarely arrive wrapped in obvious signals. They hide in words, in timing, in tone, and sometimes they hide in nothing at all, except the way your mind feels when something isn't right. The truth has a rhythm. It's consistent, grounded, and effortless. Lies, they're rehearsed, they're defensive, they're evasive, and no matter how skilled the liar is, subtle patterns always leak through. By paying attention, really paying attention, you start to notice the signs before it's too late. The over-rehearsed stories, the mismatched emotions, the evasions, the absolutes, the diversions, all of it builds a map that leads you straight to the truth. The world is full of people who will try to mislead you, but once you learn to see the signs, you can navigate it with clarity, calm, and confidence. Remember, the liar may control the story, but they cannot control the observer, who knows what to look for. Stay vigilant, stay grounded, and trust both your mind and your instincts. Because the truth is always there, it just takes careful eyes and quiet awareness to find it.